everyone. I'm subbing for Rabbi Farkash today, as you know. There's a wedding going on in New York. So Rachi's sister, Rachi's brother, they're marrying off a son. They have their nephew, Rabbi Farkash's nephew, getting married. And Baruch Hashem, a happy occasion. The wedding is, I think, tomorrow. So welcome everyone to the Wednesday night Parsha class. And we have something special, which is first for me. Rabbi Farkash left notes of what he was going to talk about for me as a option if I would like to use his notes. Then you can hear Rabbi Farkash's Parsha class being delivered not as the same experience as hearing it directly from him, but I'll try to deliver what he was going to share about the Parsha.
No pressure, but maybe he's joining too.
If he's on, I'll mute myself and let him continue. The pressure is on anyway, because as you know, you have to press OK when it says this meeting is being recorded, and then it gets saved. So, that said, this week's Parsha is the opening of a new book, the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers. The translation of the word Bamidbar is not numbers, though. Bamidbar means in the desert. And the name Numbers is actually also a name that's used for it in Hebrew in early sources. The book referred to as the Chumash HaPekudim of the numbers, the ones that are counted. It has that name because the book opens up with the counting of all of the 12 tribes. And that's the first chunk of this week's Torah portion. We have the counting. We have the commandment to count B'nai Yisrael. And then we have the numbers, those from the age of 20, men from the age of 20 and up, those are eligible to serve in the army, not the tribe of Levi. They were counted separately, a separate count for them. And this counting, the very first verse tells us when this counting happened. It says, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Bamidbar Sinai. God spoke to Moshe in the Sinai desert. Ba'ohel Moed, in the tent of meeting. Be'echad lachodesh hasheni, on the first of the second month. Bashana hasheni, of the second year, counting, let's say, somebody Me'eretz Yisrael, from the exodus from Egypt. So they had left Egypt in year 1, in month 1, on day 15, because the month starts at the new moon. It was a full moon. So day 1 is not the day they left Egypt. Day 1 is 2 weeks earlier, when God said this month is the first month. We count the new months are always the new moon. So the beginning of the calendar is the Exodus. Exodus is the year 1, month 1, the 15th day of the month. And this is the second year in the first of the second month, which is 1 year and half a month after the Exodus, second year. So now they're being counted. And Rashi, commenting on this counting, he says something very interesting. He says that out of love for them, he counts them all the time. When they left Egypt, he counted them. And you can look back in the book of Shemos, chapter 12, verse 37. It's good we have the whole Chumash here, so we can look back in Shemos chapter 12. In Shemos chapter 12, verse 37 says, and they traveled, and the children of Israel traveled from Ramses to Sukkot, their first travel. And it says, Kishesh me'as elef ragle hagvarim. Approximately 600,000 were the feet of the men, levad mitaf, not including children. So that's one time that they were counted. Then, ukeshenaflu be'egel minan, when they fell with the sin of the golden calf, they were counted. That's in chapter 32, verse 28, also in Shemot. So so in Shemot chapter 32, Parshas Kisisa, chapter 32, verse 8. Is that right? I'm sorry, 28, verse 28. Chapter 32, verse 28. What does it say there in verse 28? So it talks about, yes, how many fell, right? So again, a count, but this time counting how many less. That's 600,000 now, minus 3,000. And so that was accounting to know that how is the count of how many died. We're counting again how many are still alive. And now, when he came to have his divine presence, his Shekhinah, dwell upon them, he counted them. The Mishkan, on the first of the Nisan, the Mishkan was built, and the first of Iyar, he counted them. So this is just a month after the Mishkan was built, and now God is resting his Shekhinah, his divine presence, on Bnei Yisrael. He's counting them again. So this counting is not the first, but a very interesting point there. And Rabbi Farkash, a very interesting contrast with this counting with another kind of another type of number. The previous Rebbe wrote a diary about his experience in the communist prison, his arrest under the communist in 1927. He was arrested, treated very harshly, and he had a fantastic book, that he wrote after leaving the prison, with every detail from that experience of going through the interrogations, the arrest, and the search in his house, and the interrogation in the first, prison cell, and the conditions, and going through every step of the way. Of course, he had a phenomenal memory, but also he shared the details of what he remembered, not just kind of remembering it, but also describing it with a very rich kind of description. And he writes there, and by the way, you can read the book if you haven't. It's available on Chabad.org. The whole book is available in English, although it wasn't originally written in English, it was written in Yiddish. But the book is called, it's on Chabad.org, it's just The Imprisonment of 1927, which very interesting read. But he writes about how one of the traumatic things that a prisoner goes through is when, instead of being referred to by their name, they are given a tracking number. And from then on, you lose your identity. You're not a person anymore. You're just another number in the system. So they refer to the prisoners as prisoner number 126, and that experience is something which he describes and says that usually tracking numbers are put on packages. You send in the mail. Right. Tracking numbers are used to keep track of merchandise. Here, a person becomes a number. You get a tracking number, because although it's not something which they would put a sticker on your back with a number on it, but it was engraved on the hearts and the soul of the prisoner, that feeling of being, having no value, of being just a number. Dehumanizing, right? Yeah. And and the Holocaust, even going as far as tattooing was numbers on. That experience, contrasting that with what we're reading here. We're reading here that the children of Israel are counted, and Rashi says that because of his love for them, they're counted. And we'll look a little bit at the difference between these two kinds of numbers, of being given a tracking number, a serial number, and this kind of number. So Rashi addresses why the counting again. We're just counted. Rashi says because Hashem loves us, He counts us all the time. And now that He was going to, have His Shechina rest upon us, He counts us again. So the Rabbi talks about this. Rashi talks about this idea in a number of talks, and in one of them, the Rabbi discusses one of the interpretations of this count, saying, what's the benefit of counting something? What's the meaning of counting something? So there is a teaching from the Shalom that says that there is a concept in legal matters and in halacha that when you mix something which is not kosher, something that's not kosher falls into something kosher. If you have enough of a quantity of the kosher item, that which is not kosher loses its identity. And for milk and meat, for example, you have 1/60th. It's less than 1/60th. It becomes neutralized, and it's not considered a mixture of meat and milk. But the less than 1/60th of milk that fell into the meat sauce is now insignificant, and therefore, the meat sauce is still meat, and it's not. You don't have to throw it away. It's not unkosher. And the same thing is true with a lot of kinds of items in different areas of Jewish law, that we apply this principle that you can have something be nullified when it's mixed with a majority of something else. However, there are some exceptions. And there are 7 exceptions given, and then there's another one of these exceptions is that if an item is an item which is counted, it doesn't become nullified. And what does that mean, an item which is counted? For example, you go to the supermarket and you want to buy this item, they don't sell them by the pound.
Eggs.
right?
Yeah,
They sell them by the number. So eggs are sold by by numbers. You buy cherries. You don't say how many cherries did you take. Okay, you got 85 cherries. You're gonna pay for 85 cherries. It goes by the pound. So items which are sold by each instead of by the pound, by number, that kind of thing is not nullified. So applying that legal principle to counting of Bnei Yisrael says, although the nations of the world are much more than us, as the nations are made with 70 wolves and one lamb. And how can we survive such an environment, and even more so spiritually speaking? We have we have our Jewish values and the Torah, and how can we hold on to that and keep that with a overwhelming majority of other influences that threaten to drown us out and to become assimilated and to lose our identity. So, it's the votes at the UN, it's how do you deal with that? So a boost that we get from being counted is that we can't be nullified. Even if you have 1,000 times more, we're not just gonna be nullified like that. We retain our unique status because we are something that's counted. And the challenge, one challenge that's presented to this explanation is that although it's true in halacha that something which is counted is not nullified, however, this is only a rabbinic legislation that something that's counted is not nullified. Biblically speaking, if there's a majority, the minority is nullified. That principle is derived from the Torah, actually, when it comes to courts. And you have judges that are minority and a majority. Who do you follow? Do you have a jury, and some say this, some say that, and there's a principle that follow the majority. And that principle is applied also in general, that when you have a mix of majority-minority, the minority is nullified. Rabbinically speaking, the minority retains its status in different situations. And this idea that because it's something that's counted, it doesn't become nullified is a rabbinic legislation. So does it really work? So there is a beautiful answer that's given, and this is by the Chidushei Harim, the Gerer Rebbes, says that this is only only applicable if it's something that is considered something that's counted because of human behavior, because we count it. Right? Like, for example, eggs. Are eggs really more special than apples? It's just the human culture that we count eggs, and the apples go by the pound. Or, but he says it's different when it comes to something that the Torah counts. If it's counted in the Torah, that's really special. That's not just something that people do, and therefore it retains its status, even biblically speaking. However, this is a nice explanation, but isn't it work the other way around. In other words, it's not because you count it that the item that you're counting is special. Isn't it the other way around? Because it's special, that's why you count it. If it wasn't special, you wouldn't be counting it. There's something special about it, and that's why you count it. Not that you happen to count it and that's what makes it special. It just reveals that this is something which is important. The fact that you count it means that each item is important, and that's why you're counting each individual. So if that's the case, then why does God need to count us to give us this unique status that we are something that's counted? If we're special, God knows that we're special.
For our benefit?
Then, okay. So the purpose of the counting, and exactly like you said, is not just to make it special. Because it's true. We are special not because we were counted. Being counted just reveals that we are special to God, and that's why he's counting us. It's not what actually makes us special, but it reveals it in the world. It reveals it to the world. The idea of kind of taking that from just a spiritual idea that we're special and kind of bringing it down into actuality, into the physical world by actually counting, is something which the Rebbe connects to the time of the year that we're in as we're approaching Shavuos. And the holiday of Shavuos, we celebrate, of course, the new harvest of wheat, but we also celebrate the day that God gave us the Torah at Mount Sinai, and 10 Commandments with the commitments that Moses will go up and hear the rest, and he'll come down and share it with us, because 10 was enough for us. We couldn't handle hearing everything directly from God. So the holiday of Shavuos commemorates, and the big thing that happened was the giving of the Torah. Now, we have a tradition that even before the Torah was given, our forefathers already had the Torah. They knew what the Torah said. They didn't actually get it yet, but they already had it. It says that Abraham kept the entire Torah before it was given. In the Parsha Lech Lecha, it talks about, serving matzah to the angels, and the sages say, well, why matzah? Because it was Passover. Mm-hmm. Never mind, they didn't go to Egypt yet, and there wasn't a slavery yet, but they're already celebrating Passover with eating matzah.
So did Lot.
And even Lot, the next day they go to him for a second Seder, they're getting matzah again. And why are they eating matzah? And so the Medrash teaches that our forefathers kept the entire Torah even before it was given. And not only did they do it, but as Yaakov went to the yeshiva of Shem and Ever on his way, running away from Esav, running to Lavan, he spent so many years learning Torah. And what was Abraham, it says Yaakov was a simple man, dwelled in the tent. Well, what did he do in the tent? Well, he wasn't cooking lentil soup every day. He was studying Torah. So, well, which Torah wasn't given yet. It was only given, many years later. So our sages say, well, they already had the Torah before it was given. So what changed? What's this big deal about the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai if we already practiced and studied Torah before it was given? in not only that, leading up to the giving of the Torah, and we got commandments without the official giving of the Torah in Egypt. We got the commandments to observe Pesach and the new Jewish calendar, and just to be circumcised. And then on the way out, on the way to getting the Torah, we got the commandments about Shabbos and about the business dealings and how to do that, and many mitzvahs that were given in Mara. So we had been getting mitzvahs before. We continue getting mitzvahs after. What really happened at that moment at Mount Sinai with the giving of the Torah? And the Medrash explains that what really happened at Shavuos, at Matan Torah, giving of the Torah, was that there was a huge change in how the spiritual and the physical connect. Before the Torah was given, although we had the Torah, we had the mitzvahs, we did not have the power to change the physical. The physical remained unholy. Person can do mitzvahs, but the mitzvahs won't change the world. The soul could be elevated, but the body was not going along. And the Torah, the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, when God comes down, so to speak, onto the mountain, and Moses goes up, what happens is there is this unity and this merging of heaven and earth where the physical can become holy. Not only the spiritual can be holy. In fact, the angels, the Medrash says, really wanted to keep the Torah. And Moses argued, well, the whole point of the Torah is to transform the world, to make the world to be a home for God, to make the world holy. And you guys can't do it because you're angels. We have the power to do it because we're drawing down that holiness into the world, bringing it down to earth. And that can also shed light on this idea of actually counting versus just knowing they're important. It's true that you're counting them because they're important. But God says, I know how many they are. Right? I mean, of course, God knows everything. God doesn't need our help with counting. God counts the stars and gives them all names, right? All the I don't know what the number is, but the many, many stars and the and the lots of zeros, right? For lots of zeros, what goes after a trillion, right? And so there's a lot of stars, but God has no problem counting all of them. So he needs Moses to go and count how many children of Israel there are with each tribe. Is that really necessary? And God knows that we're important to him. Doesn't have to count us to make us important, but what the counting is to show and to reveal within nature, within the physical world, to take that from just being an abstract spiritual fact to something that's expressed in the world. And that is something which is just like the idea of the giving of the Torah, which is to affect the world. And through doing that, God gives us the strength in the physical world to be able to actually do our mission, which is to use the Torah to elevate the physical world and to make that to be a home for God. Now, the idea of counting is a very interesting idea. When the people were counted, everyone counted as have the same value of one. If you were Moses, you're one. if you're the most simple, ignorant, very simple person, you're also one. And that idea that we're all being counted as one doesn't make sense, because you have some people which are tremendous, they are giants. And there's some that are very simple. And what does the number tell you? Like, all being counted as one. If you were counting, if you had a lot of cars in the parking lot, say, okay, tell me how many cars there are. And you say, well, there's 80 cars. You're counting 80 cars. Well, one of them is a car that doesn't even start. And the other one is a Lamborghini, right? And you call and you're just going to count them all. Yeah, there's 80 cars. How much do you want to pay for the cars? I mean, how could you compare with eggs? Count them by the number. All the eggs are the same.
Brown shell.
Right. But if you're getting a dozen eggs, it's a dozen eggs because they're all the same eggs, right? But you're going to get one ostrich egg and then one chicken egg. And you say, yeah, a dozen eggs, right? Yeah, some big, some small. It's just a dozen. Right? You wouldn't do that. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So what is this idea of counting everyone as just one? It doesn't matter who you are, what kind of status you have, not spiritually, not physically, just counting everybody else. What? Huh? Oh, so there is an aspect that we have, which we are all equal in one. And that is that we all share what's called in Yiddish the Pintel Yid, the core of the soul. The core of every soul, of every Jewish soul, is a piece of God that has infinite potential. The nucleus. It's got such power in it, such infinite power. It's a part of Hashem, and we all equally have that neshama, that core that we all have, is the same. The differences are only in the revealed part and the external part, in our abilities, in our intellectual abilities, in our emotions, in our behavior, our character. But that's not the essence of who we are. At our core, we have this spark of God, this core of the neshama, which is beyond any revelation, but it's the essence of who we are. And by counting each of us as one, that highlights that we all have this, and we are all the same when it comes down to who we really are at the core. So
counting neshamot, counting people.
So both. In fact, Kabbalah explains that the 70 souls that went down to Egypt is because that one soul of Yaakov was splinters into 70, and then it further splinters into the 600,000. And then all of the other souls are like sparks of one of those 600,000 souls. So this counting was counting of souls. And of course, the souls then were matched up with the bodies that the souls were in. But that idea of, is so the count in that all of us are counted as one, regardless of what we do and our skills and our behavior, our mental and emotional capacity. It highlights that we have this about us, this pintelayid, this core of the soul. And by highlighting that, when we know this is who we really are, by being counted in such a way that tells us, who am I? I'm one. That means that I'm the same as Moses. Why? Because I have what Moses has. We share that. That gives me the power to go out into the world and not lose myself and not lose my identity and be nullified in that big, the big wild jungle of 70 wolves, to be able to keep that strength.
To go from nothing to realize that he had the potential and therefore became who he did.
Yeah. The Rashi, the language that Rashi uses, that Rashi was reading to you before, the wording is, out of his love for them, he counts them kol sha'a. Kol sha'a is every hour, meaning all the time. Which at first glance sounds like it's hyperbole. It's like, yeah, every hour. I mean, we listed, when we left Egypt, it says 600,000, and then minus 3,000, and now we're being counted again. Well, it is counting often, but it's only been like a year since they left Egypt, and they're being counted now again. But why does he say all the time? So all the time is because the fact that we are counted highlights to us all the time that we are people that are counted, and that we are all counted as one because we have that power in us, where God treasures us and we have that special power in us. And of course, this reveals it to the world. And as Rashi says, now that it was time to build the Mishkan, the Mishkan was being built. What's the idea of building the Mishkan? It's drawing down God's presence into the world and revealing that the world is not separate from God, but revealing the holiness within the world, making the world a holy place. So we are being counted to reveal that power within us, to make the world to be a home for God, to reveal that to the world. And there is another aspect to this count, which is different than the previous counts, which is in the first count that we looked at, it just said the total number. We have 600,000. Didn't get into here in this count that we have in our Parsha, every tribe is counted first separately, and then we have the total. And this is in contrast to counting everyone the same. Everyone is just, one of 600,000. This count, at the same time that we're counting everyone as one, we're also counting by the tribe and counting each tribe's total. And we know the tribes were each unique. So we have, each one had their own flag, and they had, even in the splitting of the sea, so that there are 12 paths through the sea, each tribe having their own path. The blessings for each tribe were different, and Yisachar had his business and being philanthropist, and Zvulun was full-time Torah study, and Levi was full-time dedicated to the holy things, and Yehuda, each tribe had their own unique qualities, and that's the other side of this number part, which is, on the one hand, we're being counted as a number, which is we all have that core, which is the same. But at the same time, we also remember another fact, which is that we all have a unique part in this mission that we have. We all have our unique skills, our unique responsibilities, our unique abilities, and we need to get our job done, our specific work done with our unique qualities that we have. So I am one on the one hand, and that reminds me of that we all have that same equal, infinite potential that God sees in us, that godly spark on the one hand. And at the same time here, it's also highlighting that we need to value our unique responsibilities and our unique qualities that God gave us, and how that all is part of the bigger picture. The Jewish people were compared to a single organism, or like a single person. We have the arms got to do the arms responsibilities, and the leg has to do the leg responsibilities, the head. Every part of the body has its own unique job. And at the same time, we are all one. We're all part of one unit, one organism, and we operate as one. So this particular way of counting, that we're all counted as one, and yet each tribe is counted separately, reminds us that we have our unique responsibilities in the world, and we should use our unique talents that we have to fulfill that responsibility. So coming back to that tracking number. So the tracking number and this kind of counting, this number that we're talking about here, this number one, that each one is one, is the very opposite in their message. Whereas the tracking number in prison was, you're nothing, you're insignificant. The counting here is, you're super significant. You have that potential, that power in the core of the neshama that's just like Moses, just like every other, just like every other Jew, you have that same, that's who you really are. That's who you are. You're one, and you're one, and you're one. And at the same time, we also have to remember our unique tribe. We have a unique mission, unique part, very different kinds of countings. In counting Jews, although we have the commandments to count here, the idea to count was that we only are supposed to count Jews when God commands us to. And even then, as we read in Parsha's Kisisa, it says that when they're counted, each one should give a half a shekel. And by counting the shekels, the total, you'll know how many people gave a shekel. Every person gives exactly half a shekel, then you'll have the total. So we're not meant to, we are not supposed to count Jews 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the problem becomes, well, what happens when you need to count? For example, the classic time is you need to check, do we have a minyan? So instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's a early book, Sefer HaPardes, that says that the way to count people when you come to Shul for a minyan is using a verse from Tehillim. The verse is the verse that we read in Matovu. It's Va'ani Berov Chastecha Batachti. I'm sorry. Va'ani Berov Chastecha Avo Betecha Eshtachave El Hechal Kodecha B'yiratecha. So the verse has 10 words. So if you want to check if you have a minyan, you count Va'ani Berov Chastecha Batachti. Va'ani Berov Chastecha Avo Betecha Eshtachave El Hechal Kodecha B'yiratecha. And if you finish the verse, then you have 10. You got stuck in the middle, you don't have 10. Why this verse? Because this verse says, "And I, with your great kindness, I come into your house. I bow in your holy palace with in awe of you," which is describing coming into the shul and to pray. So it's a very appropriate verse to use to count when you're ready to pray. You're coming into your ani b'rav chasdecha avo b'techa. I'm coming into your house. It's, you're about to pray. That's what it's about. Makes sense. Interestingly, in the book known as Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is the abbreviated version of the Shulchan Aruch, it says that the custom is that people count with the verse Hoshia et Amecha, Uvarech et Nachlatecha, Ure'em v'nas'em ad ha'olam. Also 10 words. And the meaning of these, this is also a verse. It says, save your people and bless your inheritance, shepherd them and carry them forever. So the question for the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is, why? We have an early source, that's talking about using the verse about coming into shul, to daven. That sounds like an appropriate verse to count people. I've heard somebody counting using hamotzi. The blessing hamotzi has 10 words. So I've seen somebody count. Okay, we have 10. Okay, it's easy to remember that one because that bracha always say a lot, hamotzi. So you can count to 10 with hamotzi. But
You're not eating.
You're not eating, right? So and why this verse? Yes, it has 10 words, but why not stick with that original? That's about getting together, coming to shul to pray. That sounds like the right verse to use. Yes, there are other verses with 10 words, but why the custom to use this word, this verse? So the Rebbe says that perhaps the reason that the custom became to use this verse, Hashia Asamecha, is because at this time at the end of our exile, when we're really ready for Mashiach. So we're talking about what really counts right now. Hashia Asamecha, save your nation, save your people. That's where our mind is. We get together right away. What's on our mind? We need Mashiach. Right. Yes, we're counting for a million, but what's the verse that comes more, feels more appropriate? We're here. We have 10 Jews here. We're ready for the Shekhinah to dwell and to be, so that's yes. In fact, somebody just shared it with me today. This is from Israel by the Western Wall. Some of you may have seen it. So they're celebrating Yom Yerushalayim, celebrating the unification of Jerusalem when in 1967 the old city of Yerushalayim was retaken. So here's the video. So this is just yesterday, I guess. I don't know if you can see it on the Zoom, but so the Rebbe says now that we're we're ready for Mashiach. So it's we get together. What are we thinking about? We want Hashem's presence here. We want Mashiach. The Medrash says that there were 10 countings of Bnei Yisrael. Was the one when they went down to Egypt, so there were 70. When they left, like it says, they left from Ramses to Sukkot, which we read earlier, 600,000. There's another counting in Bamidbar here, another counting by the Meraglim, another counting that Joshua does when dividing the land. There were 2 countings that were done during the reign of King Shaul HaMelech, King Saul. There was 1 counting during the time of King David. And there was another counting during the time of Ezra, when he came back after the exile in Babylon. And 1 will be in the future, La'atid Lavo, in the future. And he quotes a verse in Yirmiyahu, Ad ta'avorna hatzon al yedei moneh, until the sheep pass through the counter. And Targum Yonatan explains that when the house of Yehuda will come together again, they'll be counted again through Mashiach. And may this be speedily in our days, that we have Hoshea Tamecha, that God should save his nation, especially with what's going on now in Israel, where we are reminded that we need Hashem's help, and we don't want a ceasefire. We want the real thing. We want Mashiach, not what's it called, a permanent ceasefire. See, there's a few different things. There's a temporary ceasefire, permanent ceasefire, and then there is a peace treaty, and then there is Mashiach. Mashiach. Not, a 6-day break in fighting, a 2-week, a 6-week, ready for the real thing. And again, thank you, Rabbi Farkash, for beautiful class notes here. And again, most of this is a compilation of various talks that the Rabbi gave on this topic. And may we merit next week is Shavuos, so there'll be an all-night Torah study. I don't know exactly the details, but Tuesday night, midnight until probably 3 something. I'll be learning here, midnight till dawn. So, the night only starts like 10 o'clock. By the time we do the evening prayers and get home to make Kiddush, we're almost at midnight. And then a few more hours till the night is over. Not such a long night here, but so there'll be no regular Parsha class next Wednesday, the second day of Shavuos. I'm sorry, the first day of Shavuos, yes. The Tuesday night is the
second evening.
Right, second evening of Shavuos.
Wednesday night.
I think we won't have the regular Parsha class, but wish you all Kabbalat Torah b'simcha b'pnimius, as the Rebbe would wish, that we should receive the Torah with joy and thoroughly, internally, like to internalize that receiving of the Torah, not just have it on the surface. Have a good night. Oh yes, Thursday night is Rosh Chodesh.
Now, there are a lot of things that are not, the number 10 appeared a few times, and of that only 9 have been achieved. And the 10th is still.
The Torah Aduma, yeah.
Like I think it is one of the 10 songs.
Yeah.
Is there more?
10 is perfection, right? It's the complete unit. We're almost there. To really perfect it, it's going to be with Mashiach.
We have the 10th sheet that is about to go.
Yeah.
And mark, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank